No, I mean, the point is they may yield up whatever, as it were, meaning they have rather slowly. But that doesn't, you know, the idea, you read a novel or you read an email or a text or a newspaper article, there's a message in the sentence, you absorb it and you move on to the next one.
Yes.
Sometimes a sentence is more complicated than another one, but essentially you get it all and you move on.
You get the
Poems
gist.
aren't like that. Poems, you know chocolate? Now, I never really got chocolate for a very long time.
You mean the food stuff?
Yeah.
The
now,
sweetie?
We're men, and we don't really... As you know, when women eat chocolate, you know, they clamp their thighs together and their eyes go peculiar, and it is more or less an erotic experience for them.
I love to watch them eating.
Yeah. And a woman who was very, very keen on chocolate gave me some splendid chocolate and saw me biting a bit off. She said, no, don't you know how to eat chocolate? I said, no. At least I thought I did. She said, no, you just a tiny bit there and put it on your tongue. 10 minutes it'll take. Just let it melt. Just occasionally push it up against the roof of the mouth.
Yeah.
And this great rainbow of flavours and textures melts in your mouth. Now, that's all poetry, in a sense. I mean, it slows you down rather beautifully. And you just enjoy the bounce and heft and glory of one word following another. And yes, because they're words, they carry meaning.
Yes.
You know? But it's not, it really is not something to get excited about. Just let it melt.
Some poets would have that words are shabby tools, always deteriorating.
Mm-hmm. Indeed,
Yes.
very good.
Not up to the test of time, and you can't keep working with them necessarily. How do you feel about the kind of change in language now? Like children text each other, youngsters text each other, and I get cross. I'll be honest with you, I get angry if I get a text which isn't every word spelled out properly. I am not one. I do not like B4. C-U-L-ater. I get quite cross and I refuse to respond to these things.
My dear nephew George, who's 12, I gave him some present. He said, "That is so book." I said, "What?" He said, "That is really book." It wasn't a book I'd given him at all. It was one of those PSP things.
Oh, marvellous.
And I said, "What do you mean book?" He said, "Do you know what book means?" I said, "Well, I thought I knew what book meant." And what it is, you know, T9, you know, predictive text.
This is when you text in and it guesses
guesses
the word.
ahead the word, yeah. If you try and type cool on some of these systems, it comes out as book. So my nephew George, being 12, is of a generation where the extra 2 key presses necessary to change cool into book, frankly, he hasn't got time. He's a 12-year-old. Very busy. So they just let book stand. So book, for his generation, means cool.
So the language has evolved.
Yeah, it's well book, exactly.
But I wouldn't know that, and I would just... This is not fair on us older people.
No, but we can pick it up. He once said to me as well, he said, "Uncle Stephen, you've got to learn to chillax."
Chillax?
Chillax.
Chillax?
So, yeah, it's a portmanteau. It's chill and relax into one word.
I don't like this.
Why not?
It's wrong.
Not wrong at all.
Look, there are 2 words. There's chill and there's relax. Chillax is not a word. Chillax is like a planet in Doctor Who.
Do you like words melding together?
Depends which words.
Ah, well, now, why did you accept me using the word meld? You look up in the dictionary, the word meld means to announce. You thought it meant to weld and to melt. That's like 2 words gone together.
Yes.
It has never meant that. It never meant that. It means to announce. It's absolutely, completely, in your terms, wrong to use meld like that. But it's how language built up. I have no time at all for the kind of...
Just chillax a bit, will you?
But it's an important point. It's an important point because most of the people who actually think they're the ones who care about language, the kind of absolute arse-witters who write letters to newspapers, you are far from your audience. It's the kind of, I'm afraid, the kind of people who write to Radio 4 moaning about a confusion of disinterested and uninterested and thinking that they're terribly educated and that they really understand language and they know the derivation of words and someone has said less when they meant fewer and so on. But that's not being a guardian of language. Being a guardian of language is enjoying language, is understanding it. And if people understood it for a second, the philology, as it's called, the history of it, you'd realise language is changing all the time.
But you know what's lovely about hearing you say this is because you have a reputation, and it is completely unfair, of being tweedy and of being someone who is sort of fogyish. And, of course, I know from my own experience, you know, I don't know you terribly well, but I know that you embrace modern technology, you embrace modern culture, and this speaks highly of you that you are more prepared than someone like myself who, to the casual viewer, would seem far more book.
Yes.
And yet it's not as booky.
I tell you what it is. My latest theory is, if you think of London, for example, our dear beloved metropolis, you go into the average street in the city, say, the east part, the actual city part, You will see medieval, Tudor, Elizabethan, and Georgian, and Queen Anne, Victorian, Edwardian, Art Deco, modernist, brutalist buildings, all jostled together. Yeah. It's a very higgledy-piggledy city. You cross over the Channel to the nearest equivalent metropolis, Paris, and for reasons that it might be impolite to go into, but it's something to do...
Historical.
Well, the fact that every time Fritz coughed, then René curled up into a little ball and put up a white flag. But it's essentially that it wasn't...
But we forgive and forget.
It wasn't subject to the same fires and blitzes and everything else that London was. And it was planned. And it's beautiful. You go there, you're stunned by these boulevards and all in one consistent architectural style, more or less, with a few modern, very self-conscious grands projets, as they call them, in the centre. But everything barbarian and vulgarian that is kept outside the périphérique, as they call it, like barbarians at the gate. And their language is the same. They have an academy to stop franglais coming into it. Now, English language is like London. It is, every time we speak, it is a mongrel mouthful, whether we know it or not, of Chaucer and Milton and Dryden and Pope, Shakespeare and Dickens and American South Central and ghetto rap and Chicago and Australian convict talk and legal and naval and military. Every phrase we utter is an equivalent of London. It's both vulgar and processional. It's both grand and squalid. And that is exactly what human beings are, it seems to me. It's both animal and it's noble. And people who try and aggrandize language into something that is right or wrong, you might just as well say a person is right or wrong, but for existing, it's just arse gravy, you know? No, it's not acceptable. It's very peculiar.
Before we say goodbye to Stephen, and I'm sure you've seen this before, but this is a marvellous piece of TV history. This is Stephen when he was a young lad, a whippersnapper, on University Challenge.
Oh, no.
Now, I show this not so much to enjoy you as a young person, but just to marvel at the facial hair of your partners in crime. I'm only assuming these people are now dying out because, God knows, they're never going to find anyone to them if they look like that. Have a look at this. I'm sure they didn't.
Which French scientist and writer on religious subjects, born in 1623, was an infant prodigy in mathematics?
Pascal.
Pascal, 5 points. And a starter again, with 5 points only from 300 for Queens. And here's a starter. The man who partnered George Burns in the film version of The Sunshine Boy...
Queen's Fry.
Sorry, hang on.
How are you? I never did Walter
Matthau.
What?
Walter Matthau.
I thought I'd just managed to give you a 5-point penalty. You got there just in time. All right. Even in your position, I will have to let you did get it out in spite of great pressure from you. Walter Matthau is absolutely correct, and that brings you up to 305. You're over the 300 mark. It was Walter Matthau in The Sunshine Boys with George Burns.
Happy days, though. I bet you happy days.
Gordon.
Barber. I love the look of Barber.
Yes, he's great.
Didn't he go on to star in the film Witness with Harrison Ford? He built a barn. I remember that scene. That's a marvellous tip. Stephen, it's always so lovely to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us again. Stephen's new book is The Ode Less Travelled. I recommend it. It's great fun, and you know, I might start writing a couple of poems. Lovely having you on the show. Mr. Stephen Fry, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to stay? Are you going to stay for music? Lovely. Thank you to my guests this evening, Stephen Fry, of course, Dave Goody and Guy Pearce. All of you were splendid company. Joining me next week, we have from the band Texas, Charlene Spiteri, Hollywood star Woody Harrelson, plus we have music from the Kaiser Chiefs, and Harry Potter himself will be here, Daniel Radcliffe. Expelliarmus. Or whatever it is. Now, performing Morning's 11.